Welcome to Lift Up, a short-form spinoff of the Behind the Wind podcast. Lift Up was created for quick, meaningful conversations, short episodes that explore timely ideas, practical lessons, and thought-provoking topics across leadership, growth, business, and life. Each episode is designed to offer something you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Think of it as a spark, concise insights, real perspective, and actionable takeaways delivered in just a few minutes.
I want to say specialist as being the over operations of what's happening in the DC region, in particular as it pertains to a lot of the government work there, both within the Congress and a lot of the entities that are working with the federal government. Today, I thought I'd share a little about something that took me a while to fully grasp. It is the RFI, and many people look at these and say, RFI, what is that? It's pretty simple. It's request for information. Sometimes it's called sources sought. The government loves to put out these little tidbits saying, we need help on identifying people who can do something. And in some cases, they go a little further saying, we need help on someone helping us understand what we should do. And in many cases, those go out as requests for information and sources sought. Very simple. If I'm a tech company and I have something special, and I'll use AI as an example. I have something that can do facial recognition and also how you're walking so that security can better analyze people coming in and out by both their face or just by the way they walk. And that is something which I think the government needs. So I happened to see one day request for information that we're looking for some AI for better security of our buildings. And we're looking at what people do. What I do when I see that, if I were working for one of these companies, I would immediately respond saying, great idea to do this. By the way, we do it. This is how we do it. We have technology that does A, B, C, D. We use this frequency. We use this type of camera. We use this type of technology. And I would share as much as I can about what we do. Because what happens, the government will take all this information that people are sending. Some might send a little, some might send a lot. There might not even be many that respond. But recognize that it's likely that's going to turn into a proposal that the government is now seeking a request for services that identifies what they want in order to protect their buildings. So if I was part of this process in saying this is how it should be done, I may even be communicating with that office during this process of, can I show you what our technology does? When all of a sudden the request for proposal or the RFP comes out, in many cases, the state of the art, which hopefully is what you do, is shown in the RFP. So that all of a sudden you're responding to an RFP, a request for proposal that the government's put out that has taken into consideration what you submitted as part of your request for information or sources sought. It's pretty straightforward. It's very simple, but a lot of companies do not respond, surprisingly. And those that do have an added advantage. And in many cases, we call that capture. We're helping the United States government or a county government, a state government, understand what we're doing and how it's applicable to what they do. And the more that you can get out in front of what the government's looking for or what the government thinks they need, the more often you'll likely win because you are part of the conversation. You're developing the conversation. So again, it's an easy approach. It's something that doesn't take a lot of time. And I would make sure that anything that comes out with that RFI tied to it or sources sought tied to it, you read, you respond. And even if you add a little more to what they're asking for, that's okay. Because when they put out the proposal, what you describe may be needed. It may be included. And if it is, you're one step ahead of the others. Where this has played a role, and I'll use in a couple different scenarios, cases in which we've worked with companies that have had past performance in an area that the government is asking for sources sought. So it could be, I'll use the example. In one case, the Army was asking for sources sought in a certain type of information technology. When that went out, we were able to go to that entity, to the Army specialist, and say, hey, we've been doing this type of work. We've done it with your sister agency. They know who we are. Here's some of the past performance we've done with them. Oh, and by the way, we do have a special preference in that we are a women-owned business, or in that case, it was a woman-owned business, that when the proposal goes out, you can start to, they can start to think through, this person knows what we do, or at least in a secondary office. They have worked with the Army, and they're also a woman-owned business, which, depending on the agency or the administration in charge, may look at that and say, that gives them an opportunity to put it out for a women-owned. And when that happens, it does reduce the competition, but it also ensures that you're a known commodity. And in this case, it did help this entity going forward and winning some additional work. And the process of going through and awarding it was very different than your traditional request for proposal that the government puts out. So it can speed up as well the time and delivery of an opportunity that the government is seeking input on. A lot of folks ask just the amount of time that goes into an RFI, request for information or sources sought, and request for proposal. So when I'm doing a request for information back to the government, this is what we do. The time frame can be anywhere from 15 minutes to a couple hours. It is very quick. In many cases, I'm just taking what we have and putting it into the format that the government's asked for the request for information. In most cases, it's fairly simple. Here's 8 questions that we have, and you're responding specifically to 8 of those questions, what you do, or it might even be, we're just looking at folks who do this type of work. Tell us about what you do and a little about the characteristics of the firm. The RFI is very simple, very easy, and quick to submit. In addition, the RFI has a name. What I always do is follow up specifically with that person to say, hey, I know that you put this out. I have some additional information. Would you have time to chat? And almost always they're going to have time to chat, whether it's by phone or in office. So always look at this as very not a lot of time. Now, when the RFP comes out, that can be what we have found anywhere from 40 to 80 to 120 to 150 hours. It can keep going up to respond to it, because now you're filling in additional things in which the government's requiring, as well as what you're going to provide if you respond in different sections, how you're going to approach it. Now, again, if you did reply to the RFI, it may include the RFP that was put out, standards that you have when you replied, or focus that you had in your RFI that's now part of the standard request for proposal that you can then build upon and dig and have a deeper conversation with the government with the questions they're wanting you to respond to for that request for proposal. Well, thanks for taking the time for learning a little about RFIs and RFPs, and we're always open to have additional conversation as needed.